By mid-1940, France had fallen. Norway was in German hands, and all eyes turned to Britain. Over the course of that summer and into 1941, German aircraft would range the skies of England in what would ultimately be a futile attempt to establish aerial supremacy for the launch of Operation Sea Lion. Of course, we know now that Operation Sea Lion was almost certainly a doomed idea from the start, but back then, neither side was quite so sure of that. But what if, in 1940, German eyes had turned elsewhere? What if Hitler decided that the best way to dismember the British Empire was not to go for the head, but rather to cut off the limbs? What if the Wehrmacht, the Luftwaffe, and the Kriegsmarine had received orders to prepare not for the sands of the English south coast, but for the sands of the Libyan and Egyptian deserts? What if, in short, the Germans had decided on a Mediterranean focus for its operations in 1940 instead of the United Kingdom? Of course, real life isn't like a game of Risk where you can just move entire armies wholesale across the map. There are political, diplomatic, logistical, physical, and geographical limitations to account for. Units need to be trained in new specializations, new equipment has to be purchased, and old equipment modified. You have to keep the enemy guessing as to your intentions, and you have to work out which ideas might look good on paper, but in reality would be nearly impossible to achieve. With all that in mind, a few weeks before Tankfest, 3 channels, Military History Visualized, Military Aviation History, and myself decided to start researching this idea. Questions like, just how many aircraft could Italian airfields support? How long does it take to ship a panzer division? Just exactly what was the strength of the Royal Navy in the Mediterranean in 1940? How many anti-shipping trained pilots did the Luftwaffe have? How do you supply a much larger Afrika Korps? And what kind of assets could the Kriegsmarine deploy to the Mediterranean? Were all asked, the numbers crunched, the scenarios postulated, and ideas arrived at. And of course, with that in mind, what would happen with these new forces? What would the spoils of war be? Where would the critical points of conflict arise? Would the gates of Gibraltar be broken? Well, with an array of limited memory cards, slightly unstable tables, plenty of notes, a gigantic hip flask, occasional mysterious muffled rumbles and explosions, along with a deep and abiding wish that air conditioning was somewhat more common in the UK, we sat down to go over what we'd found and postulate the outcome. What, you might ask, were our findings, our speculation, and our theories? Well, find out by following the link in the description or appearing on screen now, as the 3 of us consider what would have happened in what I, somewhat sarcastically, like to call Operation Sand Lion.